Amazing. Thank you so much. Perfect timing. The tea's here from Rabbi Tatz. Thank you so much. And the other rabbis here. This is all in honor of the JLE. I'm an alumnus, like someone who had the merit to learn in this base midrash in my beginning years. And that was in 1998, 99. I'm aging myself here. You see the grey hairs, they're growing as we speak. But the JLE was a place that really changed my life, and I'm honoured. It's been 25 years or so, maybe a bit less, since I've come back to this place and learnt Torah together with you guys. I maybe walked in a few times for Shabbos or for maybe for a schmooze with back in the day with Rabbi Kirsch or Rabbi Stepsky. You know, that's how I'm aging myself. And I haven't been here for a while, have they? Big credit to all those individuals who taught here, special Rabbonim and all the staff who were part of my growth in the end of the 90s. What I want to discuss tonight, after just literally getting off a plane and going through passport control with my daughter, because she's not UK, so it took a bit longer, you know. That's how it works. I've been married now 22 years, and there was JLE representatives at my wedding in Yerushalayim. But before we get to that point, I just want to catch you up what happened before I became who I am now and what the JLE did for me, and then I'll introduce who I am and how this is connected to you guys. We see on the table, it's about tshuva. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So thank you, Rabbi, for learning that before I came, because that's the light that we want to share, especially Erev Rosh Hashanah, Parshas Nitzav V'Yelech. It's a special time of year where you are now the seventh Shabbos of Nechomta, of comfort after the 3 weeks, which is a more sadder time of destruction and difficulty. We are now at that climax point of comfort as we prepare now for the big days ahead of Tishrei. So we have an 8th Tzom. We already have a lot of heavenly help in everything we're doing, in our connection to ourselves, to our Creator, to our learning, to our praying. Everything we're doing now is on a different level at this time of year. It's an extra Sata D'Shmaya. So we should all allow ourselves to experience it. It's not something anyone should just take for granted, that when you get to this point of the year, it's the climax of the year, especially a time of Tafshin Pei Gimel. There's been a tremendous, change in the world the last few years. I don't know if you've all felt it. I'm sure you have. Thank God, getting here, no corona issues. Thank God, hasn't come back yet. God forbid. We should not see that return, because it was smooth as anything getting through the airports in that sense. But still, there are people wearing masks. People are talking. You hear the murmurs. So it's been that in itself was a big transition time for all of us. I'm sure you all felt that way. And but to go back into the 90s, before all this technology, before the phones, I'd walk into the JLE, and there was nothing with me other than the Gemara and the Rebbe, and you could kind of really imagine that time period of what it was like to come to this place where we literally were disconnected from everything out there, and this really was a place of just pure Torah and learning. And I hope on some level, even with the technology, you're able to still accomplish that kind of level of connection. And even the Wi-Fi code, connect now. Yeah, that was cool. I was like, yeah, all right, I'm connected. I'm tuned back into the energy of the JLE, because basically, I'll tell you my personal story. I grew up in North London. Was more secular. My family were Edge Reform for some reason. I don't know how we ended up there, but then slowly now they're back in United, and I'm here for Bar Mitzvah, which is in Hendon United. Thank God, that's changed for the good. Just gonna make a bracha. And by the way, you can ask any questions. I'm totally open. But first, let me just give a very quick intro so you can get to the questions. Growing up in London, and I just did a recent talk for B'nai Akiva, and I really told a lot of fun stories about myself, which if anyone wants to listen, it's a Unity Flow podcast, which is going to be something I'm going to mention near the end, what I'm doing now. But I got into more of the description, more the social side of stuff, how I dealt with relationship challenges, which is definitely a very important hot topic for our time in history and for our generation. We are in a base religious, so we have to be respectful. So you can listen to that rather than me repeat what I spoke, and I just did that this week. And I'll get you the link. Yeah.
BA well.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I have to say, one of the most inspirational parts of my journey, just to jump straight to Rabbi Tatz, was when I came here and the first speaker I heard was Rabbi Tatz, Rabbi Kiva Tatz, your father. Should be well.
Actually, my son.
Really? Don't confuse me. No, just after a flight, man. So, literally, you never know with Gilgulim, you know. But I walked in here and it was packed. And he was a superstar. I don't know how it is now because it's more probably online. But in person, it was an in-person experience. It was packed all the way, everything. And that was one of the topics he spoke about, intimacy, relationships, things that you wouldn't, maybe back in the day, Rabbonim publicly would bring Makoiris and he was bringing from his Rebbe, Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, and people who were holding it. But I was walking in with no knowledge of Torah. I went to Edgeware School. That's real rough. Yeah, if you would imagine what it was like back then when the estate was in its full, decadence, or however you want to say it. And now they've redone it. However the word is, what they do over there. But it's all nice buildings now. But back then it was rough and tough. I got beaten up a bunch of times, and I experienced, the tough side of life growing up in Edgeware in that way. It meant I didn't have much connection with Jews. I did get beaten up a bunch of times, which helped me ask the question, and this is what I went to Israel with, this is what I came into the JLE with: why am I Jewish? Why am I Jewish? What does that mean? Now, I went through this English school system, and the climax of education in history, which was my favourite subject, was the Holocaust. That was, the Great Depression and what that led to with the war. And then the last subject we studied, my last A-level course in history, was about the Holocaust. And I was thinking, well, wait a minute. I haven't heard anything about my people throughout all these, years of learning history. They didn't really come up at all, except for the worst part of our history, which is the Holocaust. I didn't hear about our great temple time of David HaMelech and Solomon. I didn't hear about our huge academies in Bavel and Eretz Yisrael, the Talmud Bavli. I didn't even know what that was, the Talmud Yerushalmi. I didn't even know. I didn't know what all the great Hasidic Rebbes, all this wealth of tradition. I had no knowledge, nothing. So I needed to now adjust myself to begin that search. And that was the question I came in here with. Why am I Jewish? What does that mean to me? And thank God, when you walk into the JLE and places like this, it was filled with answers, filled with opportunities, especially when I went to Israel. And first trip I went, I ended up actually going up to Sfat during my university year. And I went right at the beginning. And it was a very, very powerful trip. I went there Rosh Hashanah. I didn't even know I was going Rosh Hashanah. That's how crazy. Imagine it. It wasn't even in the story. I had long hair, earrings, and I wandered into a religious Rosh Hashanah in Sfat, which was perfect for me, because if I would have walked into Or Sameach at that point, it would have just been like black hatters. It would have just been too much from where I was at. So, God is a good planner, and he guided me right and took me to Sfat first. And I had an amazing experience. My brother-in-law to be, who I ended up marrying, his twin sister, was the one who was in Sfat, who I went to go visit. Yeah, you remember, Rafael. And he got to speak about Berkowitz and this and that. But that was later on. At that point, he was also a long-haired, more hippie. And we both met in Sfat, and that changed my life, that experience, touching base with that. But then I had to get back to university, had what to do. And once in university, I had, seeds had been planted after that experience in Sfat. I'll give you just one or two stories. I mean, you want to hear a little bit details what happened there? So Sfat, Sfat, basically one of the important things was a lot of soul, a lot of neshama. People like Aaron Razel, he was a young guy then. Now he's a famous Jewish artist, but then he was a young guy. His brother Yonatan Razel, if you know the Jewish music scene, I work very much in that world now. And he was just a young guy playing the guitar on the rooftops, and there was a whole scene going on up there. And my stepbrother-to-be was the host, and I ended up being by him. And he said to me, "What's your name?" I said, "Eliezer." That's what I remember, the Reform rabbi all those years back. Somehow I remembered, I think that's what it is. I said, "Who is Eliezer?" He said, "Oh, he's this black guy that worked for Avram Avinu." And I was like, sounds good. Eliezer Aved Avram. So I'll go with that. I'll be Eliezer. And that was what everyone started calling me Eliezer. That's an important part of my story because it gets clarified later on. Anyway, up there, one of the challenges was there was a lot of weed and stuff like that going on up there. And I had a certain experience over that time period, that year, where thank God I managed to cleanse myself of that. We can get into that if anyone's interested in it. That's up to you. You can choose that topic. Another point was Kol Isha, another challenge. That was going on up there. And that made me think, planted some seeds about that challenge. And the most important thing for me was now... Yeah. Kol Isha, because it was going on.
What is that?
Oh, Kol Isha, sorry. Thank you. Kol Isha is when a woman sings in front of men. Yeah. So it's Kol Isha. The rabbis here can explain it more detailed halachically and give you the more laws behind it. But basically, if I grew up in the music world, which I did, if, as I said, you can listen to the podcast. I used to run nightclubs and I was VIP at events. My dad just dropped me off. This week he was with my uncle and they got a stone in the road on the Music Wall of Fame, of Music Lane or whatever it's called, with their names on it. Harvey Goldsmith. This was this week. I got a great picture of it. It was all over the media. And, that's the world I grew up. My brothers are still in that world. And, I was working, when I came to JLE, I was working up the road at the warehouse of my father. And then I'd come learn here and then go work there, come learn here and work there. I'll tell you a funny story. When I ended up in Orsamer, how I got to JLE was obviously, and Orsamer is a story in itself, because let me just catch you up and I'll jump back to the warehouse story because it's funny. So I ended up basically back to university, and then up to being in university, I met just the right people. I met the rabbi next to my apartment, the only rabbi miles and miles around in Brighton, Rabbi Pesach Efun. Anyone heard of him?
Yeah.
So it was literally next to my house. And I didn't stay on the campus. I was staying in an apartment that my best friend, who comes up many times in my story, he got me through his family, a nice apartment by the beach. And what was important about this experience was that I had a beautiful Shabbos to go to. It's funny because there was a famous boxer standing outside, Chris Eubank, if anyone's heard of him. He was standing outside polishing his truck. I don't know what was more shiny, him or the truck. And we said to him, "Do you want to come in for Shabbos?" We invited him. And that was part of the whole. Every time we saw him on Shabbos day, it's about Saturday, we'd say, "Come in," and we'd always leave a space there for him. So one time I turned around and see the spare chair that he didn't come, but I suddenly see this gorilla teddy bear there sitting there. So a few of us were having a good laugh. But the point was, we carried on with this journey, and I had an amazing experience in Brighton. I really was inspired. And I have to say that my life changed, because I went from someone who was focused on, more materialistic way of life, and I suddenly started accessing a much more spiritual side to myself. And I knew the only way I could consolidate was get back to Israel. So I went for Pesach. I had time off from university, and I went for a month to Israel. Now, the problem is, you can go to Israel and you can have a very spiritual experience, but if you go to the wrong place, my first intention was my friends in university who were Jewish were trying to guide me towards the club owner in Haifa and the not good thing and the not good thing. But what happened was they were too lazy and drugged off their head to even come pick me up. So the people that I did know, who I happened to be at the airport at the same time, said, "Don't worry, stay by us tonight, we'll send you to Jerusalem. That's where you need to be." They sent me to Jerusalem the next day, ended up by the Heritage House, famous house, by, what's his name? Jeff Seidel, and the other rabbi, the famous Rabbi Meir Schuster. They got me my first pair of tefillin there. I ended up seeing months later that my dad had covered it, even though I thought they gave it to me, but somehow they got hold of him and he paid for it. So that was a merit for him. And I actually ended up getting tefillin for him later on. That's another story. But anyway, so I stayed at the Heritage. I ended up by Osamer, ended up by Aisha Torah. I was like, wow. So then where's the next place? You're going to come back to England. where am I going to go and bring this inspiration after a month in Israel? First time I ever put tefillin on in my life. I had my first Pesach Seder, which was kosher and Mahuda, and I had it was by Gutman Locks, if anyone's heard of him, a famous guru there. It's a whole story about by. Actually, I did end up with the JLE. Must have been a bit before this trip because I must have come a few times. I think because of my brother-in-law, because when he came back from Svat, he started learning here more, and the rabbi, his name was Shashua. If anyone remembers Shashua. He was an Indian rabbi, long beard. Yeah, he used to tie it up. Anyone remembers him?
Yeah.
Rabbi Shashua. Ah, what a sus. Yeah, I was at many of the rabbi's classes. So Rabbi Shashua came up to me and told me a story. I literally must have just wandered in here one day, and he said to me, if you're going to Israel, go to the guru. Go to Guru Locks, ask for him. Yeah, he told a whole story about this guru rabbi who stopped an elephant in India, became a famous guru, who was on a rampage, a famous story, a famous person. Find him at the Kotel, tell him I sent you, and I went for a Seder night by him. I had the most inspirational time there. I was by Osameach, I was by Eshet Torah, and I needed now somewhere to bring it like on a daily level, as I said. So I was working at my father, I was coming here daily, I was davening here. We had a Beis Midrash program. Back then it was Rabbi Hill, if you remember, and Avi Hill, and it was different. Rabbi Stepsky. I mean, there's obviously a new generation of staff here, but thank God we still have the real greats are still sticking it out. Thank God. So amazing inspiration I got in those days, and what it did is it put it now into learning, which is what this place and what Osameach especially is famous for. Put it into the Gemara, put it into learning. Now, because the whole idea is when you have a lot of light, I was getting a lot of light, maybe too much at that time. It's called Gadlus Rishon. When you first get inspired, it can be overwhelming. It can even be imbalancing. So the best advice that I got at that time, especially from Osameach JLE, was to put it into the learning. Put it into Torah, put it into a kli, a vessel, so that it doesn't just overflow and go everywhere. It has a place, and it starts focusing you on a developmental level, and you start to understand more now about all those questions I had, my tradition, who I am, what's the history of our people. Like Rebel Wine was phenomenal when I was in Osameach, hearing all his classes firsthand from him, hearing firsthand from back in the day Reb Buhlman. Anyone remembers Reb Nachman Buhlman? He was my mashgiach. Nachman Buhlman was a fire. He used to give over the Haftorah like he was a prophet, and say it over with such poetry and it was another level with some of the Rabbonim who were around that time. Rav Isbi, Rav Samet, thank God should be well. I still talk to him. He's still my Rav, and he was my Masada Kedushin. So I connected in with such amazing people here and there, and it put a vessel to what I needed to accomplish in my life. Now, why did it take 20-something years for me to get round to coming back here and saying this story? So I think the reason is because everything is the divine providence. For me, that was like the most important principle that inspired me, especially when you go to Rabbi Tatshir or anything like that. You understand this concept of Hashgacha Pratis. That's the English word divine providence. Everything has a flow. It's not whatever. If you're going to learn with someone, right now, who's here this moment, it's all meant to be. Who are the souls around you? Who are the souls in your family? These are deep concepts, and they're very real concepts, and they're very practical, because once you're aware of it, you can start to tune into what your personal Hashgacha Pratis, what your divine providence is, what your mission is, what your purpose is. So it obviously takes time. It's not an easy thing to figure out who you are, what you're here for. But that's really, the Torah is really that guiding light, because it says at the end of the Torah, things start to get very covered up. Asta Ponai. We don't know what's exactly going to be happening. It's a big hester, a big covering, and a second double covering at the end of days, where we are now in 2023. We don't really know so much to explain what's going on with technology, what's going on with education, what's going on with marriage, what's going on with health. Everything's gone very, intense. You agree with me? I'm not like making this up. Yeah, and that's in our lifetime, like the amount of change and the cover-up, where we don't have clarity, even politically, the amount of corruption on all levels, with the way the corona was managed, a complete nightmare. So that's just one example of many. So we're in such a generation, such a cover-up, and it could bring us, God forbid, anxiety and all these difficult mental issues, and we need clarity more than ever. So that's where the Torah comes, and the tshuva and the clarity and the hashgacha pratis, divine providence, where we start to still have ability to tune in. Because it says in the pasuk, in the parsha, lo ishkach pizaro, that the Torah will never be forgotten. That's a very important cloud, that even in a very important rule, even in our time, we will not forget the Torah. People like myself, who in theory should never had a connection to Torah, suddenly through a place like the JLE and through divine providence, I was able to discover my own portion in Torah. And that ability to find your own portion, we say it in Shemon Esrei 3 times a day, and we'll say it on Shabbos. Shabbos is a time where it's even more revealed. Yeah, we're saying, we would say Kalcheinu mitzvosecha. Yeah, come on, everyone here. Kalcheinu mitzvosecha, senhakeinu b'soresecha, sabeinu mituvecha, tzmach nasheinu b'shuasecha, tzareh libeinu li'avdecha be'emes, v'tzareh libeinu li'avdecha be'emes. What does that mean? Purify my heart with your truth. What would I do in such a time without that? Yeah, so we have to be very grateful. One, that's the first principle of Hashgacha Pratis, to now say thank you, Hashem. We're going to talk about Rav Orish. You mentioned Rav Orish. We have to thank Hashem that we have a Torah, we have a Beis Midrash, we have Rabbonim, we have a JLE, we have an Or Sameach, we have people who are searching like yourself. This is a tremendous accomplishment of our people, that there's an awakening consistently, and even more so now. Because the more crazy the world gets, the more we need the light. The more the darkness grows, the more the light can be, as the Baal Shem Tov says in this week's Parsha, I just read it out, I pray in the shul. I don't know if any of you heard of Rav Shlomo Katz. Anyone heard of Rav Shlomo Katz? So I pray in the shul, and in a frat. I just moved there recently from Yerushalayim. And my Rebbe is the Tolner Rebbe. That's where I'm at now. We're going to catch you up where I'm at now. So the Rav Shlomo Katz is a big mashpir in the general, like Mizrahi, modern, Dati, Jewish world, and a very talented singer. His brother's Eitan Katz, and he's also very talented. They play together a lot, and he's connected to all the musicians. He recently got off a phone call with Yishai Rebo with this recent event that he just did in Manhattan, in Madison Square Gardens, and he's friends with Hanan Ben Ari, all these people. So he gave me the merit to speak in a shul this week. It's called Shirat David. It's about 500 to 1,000 families. Beautiful shul. And I spoke there about this concept, very much important and relevant right now. The idea that, we are holding at a time where we need the power of tshuva. We need the power of Erev Rosh Hashanah, this kind of awakening from the shofar, from the waking up with slicha. There's a special time to cleanse ourselves, to prepare for what it means to have a relationship with God, to have a relationship with our Creator, with the King. Now, these are concepts that the world, you can ask me questions, I said, I'm happy to discuss, but the world doesn't really, make this the priority anymore. And we, as the Jewish people, have a mission, an obligation to remind the world, and not in like some crazy religious way, in a very real, balanced, healthy way, that this is a part of our life. This affects our marriage, our business, everything. This is real life. This is not just theoretical, spiritual talk. And that was one of the important things when you meet the Rabbonim here. I'm sure they're very grounded people. They're successful people. Rabbi Audrey, I've seen him on some amazing podcasts. This is the way we're communicating nowadays. We're able to connect on all levels. That's why I mentioned I have a podcast, Unity Flow. I have a podcast, Relationship Flow, talking about how we can bring more unity. How do I accomplish more unity? Because that's a big challenge nowadays. I saw that. I don't know if any of you listen to podcasts. You listen to Tim Ferriss? Anyone here? Joe Rogan? Any of these guys? I don't know. There's a lot of big podcasters around right now, and one of the concepts is that they are very good at finding what is the question that the right now is challenging people. That's a Torah concept that the non-Jewish people have picked up on, but the idea that you should really work hard to figure out the question: what is bothering people? What is not being resolved? Where are the difficulties, and how can I, for example, in business, bring an industry to service that space that's not being taken care of at this point? So that's like a general rule in business. So, for example, unity is something which doesn't have much attention in the world generally. Like if you look at social media, it's all divisive, and I'm in the right camp, I'm in the left camp, blue, red, whatever. It's become a divisive experience. So to bring unity, the way I understood it is, one, obviously it has to be with the Torah, it has to be through prayer, but it also has to be through each of us as individuals using our creative abilities and to express that. Because music, media, art, anything creative, being a comedian, being an amazing mentalist, whatever creative avenue it is, or whatever talent it is you have ability to bring people together to an experience that can take them out of that divisive state and bring them to a more unified experience. And music does that. You with me? You felt that at a show? Like, I remember I was at Live Aid. My uncle put it on with Bob Geldof, and my father did all the merchandising licensing. And I was only like a young boy, but I remember standing there and watching everyone clapping at the same time, and Freddie Mercury was saying, "We will rock you." Yeah, I was sitting in the royal box there. There was like Princess died just a few rows below, and Prince Charles, and I was experiencing it in such a scenario, and they're all clapping hands like this, and I'm seeing this unified experience through music. Now that's obviously Freddie Mercury's not exactly the biggest righteous person in history. So now, if we would be able to create that scenario in our way, through our abilities, then we could do that for the world in a very real and spiritual way. And that's our ability. All of us have that power. So it's just up to us to understand on some level, one, not to underestimate who we are, not to realize that when you come and learn Torah, where it's going to lead. I, for example, many years have worked with, I don't know if you heard of an artist, Nissim Black. So Nissim Black is someone I've worked with for years already. I met him through a different rapper called Shine Poe, who I was introduced. He tried to become Jewish. I don't know, it didn't really work out. But through his people, they told me about this rapper in Seattle who's wanting to become Jewish. We connected in 2011. We've been very close since then. And I'm part of his booking team. I was his manager at one point, but it's an intense life. I think he's come here at some point. I organised him. I think I booked him to come and speak for the young professionals.
Very confused.
Yeah, I organised that with Gemma back in the day. Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
And Dov Cohen. So, but that's one of the things I do. I organise events. So he's a very unifying personality. He's had his journey. I'm just saying each person has to figure out, because it's not just about being, wow, look at Nissim. What can I do to contribute to also be an inspiration? Nissim Black is doing it, and I have other artists like I mentioned already, Shlomo Katz, Eitan Katz, I mentioned them already. But then there's a whole long list. I have a whole booking agency and a large list of singers, speakers. I've even started to now work with female singers. Obviously, once again, the resolution of Kol Isha is they will not be singing for you guys, unfortunately. But like Bracha Jaffe, I'm in the middle of a deal working out, start having her, like she's done songs for Thank You Hashem, it's got hundreds of thousands of views. Be able to get her to sing for larger audiences. I don't know what the controversy here is in London. I heard there was something going on. Rather not enter into the politics. Once again, my approach would be unity and making positive things take place. If you have a question about it, please speak to your local rabbi. But I mean, there is a few podcasts out there that discuss it, like Headlines, and nowadays you've got every place to go online if you want to hear the discussions. But really, the most important thing is each of you to develop your own voice. That's what the gift of the internet can be your ally. You can develop your own platform, your own voice, or help promote a rabbi here or someone you're inspired by. One of the things I got to speak at a campaign against anti-Semitism. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but he's a well-known podcaster, and he's had lots of interesting people on his podcast, like Rudy Rochman, and we're meant to actually bring Rudy here for another month from now, and my uncle was meant to come, but hopefully they'll come back in the next season in January or February, because they're two people. I mean, my uncle would be a big deal because he's never really spoken, as far as I know, for any Jewish religious organisation. He's spoken for Jewish organisation, but not a religious one. So that'd be very nice to have him come here. But Rudy has spoken. I think he even spoke here at some point. So we'll be bringing him back hopefully. The idea of these kind of personalities. So when I was on the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism podcast myself, they actually interviewed me myself. I spoke and said that one of the most important things we can do to turn the tide of all the hate and negativity is we have to step up. That means each of you have to think about it a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to be going crazy with these phones all day. But it just, on some time, when you see an opportunity to promote or to invite, don't be scared, don't be embarrassed, be proud of what you're learning, be proud of what you're doing. Obviously, when it comes to people who are maybe more sensitive, like family, you have to be careful, because one of the worst things to do is what I did. And I try to push it onto my parents initially and my brothers. It doesn't work. Just take it from me, it doesn't work. You have to be very, very careful how to introduce it. And thank God I had Rabbonim like Rab Bullman and other Rabbonim back then who told me to calm down, make sure it's, you're respectful. That's the most important thing. That's showing you're a mensch. That's the biggest thing you can do of all, just being a good person. And that itself will show that the Torah life is an amazing opportunity, and it can share and light for them as well. But the most important thing is that the truth needs to be known right now. It's a valuable light in the darkness. As I was quoting the Baal Shem Tov in this week in Shirat David, it's a light that lights up the darkness. And I mentioned that I would tell a story. So I was working for my father in the factory there, and we were sending out, in those days, they still have actually all the licensing for James Bond. So you can imagine the recent premiere was a big deal, and it was online and it was delayed, so it made them even more money, because there was a few years of just selling and selling and selling before that film came out. And when I was there, I was working, they had, I don't know what James Bond it was then, I don't remember which actor and which one it was in the 90s, end of the 90s, but I was working there and said, who?
Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan. Yeah, it was Pierce. So we were sending out, and it was also wrestling was a big thing back then, WWE and F. My dad's got a great picture of him and Hulk, and there's Hulk Hogan saying, "Holy brother," and like holding each other. It's a really amazing picture. But I was sending out all this stuff to all the people, and I was listening. It was a Walkman. Who remembers Walkmans? Yeah. So I was listening to a Walkman, and I was listening to all the tapes I got from here and from Osameach in Israel, Rabbi Tatz and Victor Miller and all the great speakers back then. Fisher Schechter, when he was still younger, used to give up a very fun Parsha Shir, and all this kind of stuff I had with me, and I was listening to it while, and then I'd come and learn in the morning here. And I got to Israel a few months later, because I made that choice. I really have to take it the next step. I'm not going to go back another year university. I'm not saying everyone should do that. Get your degree, finish off whatever you need to do. Now you can do it online probably anyway. But I went to Israel. I was all gung-ho for Torah, and I came, and I was sitting in yeshiva in Israel, and I found out my father, and he says, "What have you done?" I said, "I don't know. I'm in Israel. You know about it." He says, "Yeah, that I know. But what did you do when you were working for me? What happened to all those orders? Yeah, you know how many orders went to the wrong place?" He said, "With the amount of complaints we've had and things sent back, and you confuse this, confuse that." And I said to myself, I'm not saying this is good advice, I'm just saying what happened to me. That I literally, because I was so absorbed with that journey of consuming Torah at that time and listening to all these great shiurim, and I just was hungry for it. So I ended up messing up half the orders. So it was like it wasn't where I needed to be at that time, in a warehouse doing boxes and stuff. I needed to grow. This was my time of life, young age, before I had the family and responsibilities, to really learn. And that's what I did, thank God. And I was in the right place at the right time, as I said, divine providence, and they sent me. So I just want to give you all a blessing. And once again, anyone can ask any questions about my journey and what I'm doing. It's amazing to be here, and all of you should be blessed. I'm a Kohen as well. So, and in terms of Tzaddikim, Rebbes, I've had the merit of being very close with many holy Rabbonim in Yerushalayim, and obviously including the Rabbonim and Osameach, but also beyond that, I don't know if anyone's heard of Rav Simai Zilberberg. I was very close with him, and the Kalav Rebbe. When I come Friday night, please God, and we'll do a little speech then, be a little bit different, more Shabbos, more uplifting and elevating for all of us. I'll be wearing my strimal that I got from the Kalav Rebbe, and that's the kind of help that the Tzaddikim have given me in my journey, coming from a world of music and entertainment and very little Judaism, that I was very much welcomed in the community in Yerushalayim and Beitar and at Beit Shemesh, where I've all lived. I moved 10 times. And now it's very interesting. I'm in the Efrat community, and they're growing. They're wanting Hasidus, they're wanting Panemius, and I've been very much accepted there with my Strimal and with my Bekasha, even though they're wearing different clothing to me, and that's part of my unity message to Am Yisrael, that we don't all need to be boxed off into our little boxes and communities, that we can all communicate and we can connect and we can verbring and we can have Shabboses together. And thank God I'm experiencing it in live time and in real time, and I feel very blessed in that way, living in the Holy Land. So if anyone wants to ask anything before we end off, I'm happy. Questions?
Can I ask a tiny bit about the Midnight Rabbi?
So thank you, Yaakov. Yeah. Very important that we bring up the Midnight. By the way, the live feed went down, so that it's not meant to be recorded, but the audio is here. So that's good. The idea of the Midnight Rabbi was created by the students themselves. I've done a bunch of media about this back in the day at Oret Sheva, which is an Israeli thing, because I did a bunch of concerts there. But the Midnight Rabbi, basically, I had this feeling late at night, I couldn't sleep. I went out of my room, went out of my house, and started walking the streets of Jerusalem. I lived right next to near where town is, and I saw it's packed with kids all night, almost every night, especially the beginning of the year. All the guys are wired from the what do they call it, from the the jet lag, and they never really recover, and then they're really getting to Seder, and then they're back in America for Sukkot, and then they come back jet lagged again, and then they never really get, maybe by Hanukkah, especially the Americans have that excuse a bit more. But basically, it's packed, yeah. And I started thinking, I was doing a program for Rabbonim to teach in yeshiva, and I got a job working for a rabbi from Or Sameach who opened up a yeshiva called Netzach. If anyone remembers Netzach, anyone remember Netzach? So it was a very special place for they call it at-risk teenagers, and I was working there. And the way it was a Shemitah year back then. I was sitting there. I don't know why Shemitah came to my mind, but it means the 7th year. So I was waiting there playing the Xbox at night, keeping them off the streets. And I realized the later I come, this is more of a service, because I'm keeping them away from that action, the drink, the women, the whole experience. And they're going to hang out with me instead, or one of the other staff, and we'll talk, we'll play pool, we'll actually connect. So I started creating this position, and it was called the Xbox Rabbi. There was another yeshiva that were interested, and I went there, Ner Yaakov, and I started going there even later. And this was like now, after Netzach, I'd go there around 1:30 till 4 in the morning. And I started hanging out. You think, what's the guy doing at 1:30? And I'd always have boys, always have what to do. I was learning Ben Ish Chai, I was learning Tanya, Lakuti Maran. I was learning with the boys after they'd just been out at night. I'd even sometimes wander into town and grab a few of them, bring them back, take them to Verbrengen and the Chabad house, Mayanot, or Rabbi Avson, the rap. It was always opportunities. Yeah, just to cut a long story short, because I'm saying I don't want to be too much. But the point was, the kids themselves said to me, "Who are you, Rabbi?" So one guy said, "He's the Midnight Rabbi." So I said, "Wow, that's a good name." And he then said, "I'll make for you an email, Midnight Rabbi." So he did. And then we'll keep in touch that way, because I wasn't even online at that time. I'd completely disconnected from internet, from anything. Like I mentioned one of my best friends who got my property in Brighton, that was right next to the Chabad rabbi miles around. So he also came to visit me. And the only way to get hold of me is through a house line back in that day. I had no email or anything before I got the Midnight Rabbi email. So he would phone me up and somehow get hold of me, or my wife or something, and it'd end up staying by me for Shabbat and having this spiritual experience. He's now totally he's probably helped the JLE, I imagine. He's probably helped also, helped H, helped everyone. I'm not going to say his name. Yeah. Most private individual. And, but all those Shabbos, I remember flying to him to Amsterdam. Literally, I went there and my mind was to put tefillin on him and hang out. And I did. And talk him out of his non-Jewish situation at that time. And thank God he's married to Jews. Having pleased God, I was at his wedding. I brought Eta Katz, Alex Clare, brought all the great people to his wedding with his help. And it was an amazing experience. And he's done amazing. So you never know what you could do for a friend as well. Just by being there in your journey, even if they don't initially totally get what you're up to, and they build their journey, but their journey can then complement your journey because it has so much. Yeah. So the Midnight Rabbi, to get back to it, once I was called the Midnight Rabbi, I can't lose a name like that. And I actually have an Instagram, and you can Google it. Midnight Rabbi is like a functioning platform, and it's done a lot of work, mostly in person. But I spent about 5 years on the streets doing this. I ended up in the Neve Sion as well. And that was by the time I think I met Yaakov, and I met Nuki, Chizuk, and all the clubhouse boys, and and Oliver Sholem Daniel Burrell. Unfortunately, I think that's where that's where there was some real pain points just recently, hearing about him. And sometimes it doesn't always, I mean, he was alive for a long time, but from those days, but it's very painful because I have unfortunately buried a bunch of those kind of boys, not me personally, but being at the, even as a Cohen, but being at the funerals of, and even a great Rosh Hashiva's grandson, one of them. And so it's a life or death situation at a certain level, what's going on with the teenage at risk culture. But I said it recently at Shirat David. I said in our generation we're all a teenage at risk. We're all at risk, the whole generation, in my opinion. And no one in this class disagreed with me. Actually appreciated the point that if we put that status that we're all at risk, then we have all those tools that the at-risk community gets, which is tremendous devotion and dedication from the community because they really want to help them, and they'll get one-on-one attention, and they'll get opportunities to go through real healing and real conversations, and not just be pushed to this, oh, you're doing okay, so there's 1,000 of you guys all steiging on the Gemara, so you don't really need our attention. The at-risk status gives us a very real connection, just like the special hinuch, special ed. You ever had a child special ed? Had anything to do with special ed? Special ed, have a child special ed. The best program ever. Better than all my other kids' programs of special ed. Because they do everything for these kids, and there's no judgment, and they just build them and build them and build them. He just went to a very high-level regular yeshiva this year, thanks to all their investment. But one of the things I told him is, don't forget what you got at your special ed program. Don't be embarrassed about it, and go back there regularly and visit with them and speak with them and keep that connection, because there's nothing like those kind of people. They call it in Israel chinuch miyuchad, because it's special and it's miyuchad, it's for you. So I always thought that that's really the way of, and that was the Midnight Rabbi. I would give one-on-one attention to everyone. And it doesn't matter what time of night, what time of day. I'd come back again in the day and learn with them, and they'd come for Shabbos. We'd have like 10 guys every week, and even when we couldn't afford it, we somehow managed it. And it was amazing. It was an amazing time period to work for the yeshivas and do that. I had to get a day job eventually, but it was an amazing honor to do that. So, any other questions? Anything going on in your life? I don't know. How do you all feel about the JLE? Anyone all very happy, appreciative?
That's average.
Average. What would you like to, just one improvement that you'd, and is it, this is something I always had. I'd like this. What? Salary. I'd like the education. I'd like this thing, that thing. And then a guy once said to me a very wise thing. He said, I hear all the things you're saying, but what are you going to do about it? That's always the question back. Are you going to be proactive? Are you going to go now and what you're struggling with, try to do something about it? And that's a good point.
I'd like it to be a bit more environmentally friendly.
Healthy, environmentally less plastic.
Yeah.
My brother is on your side.
Okay, you're not, but
Why?
are you?
I think it's we have to always look after our environment. The idea of a Talmid Chacham is, it says in the Mesilat Yesharim, wherever he goes, he leaves his environment in a better state than he came. So really, we should always have that in mind. We go to a place not to waste, I'm a bit crazy about it also, to the point where my Israeli kids don't totally get it, because Israel's even less aware. If you want to come and educate Israelis about it, that would be a big challenge, how to be less wasteful. One of the great things of Simcha halls is what they do is they take all the food and give it out to other people. That's an amazing opportunity. I wonder where this went off. Okay, we'll resume. No. Anything else? Okay, so we are going to end off this wonderful class in the JLE with a reminder. You have Shabbat coming up. It's Thursday night. Do what you can to prepare for a day. The way I understand Shabbat for our generation is a beautiful opportunity to disconnect, to reconnect. Just to take a time out of all this stuff and connect. That's why I said the JLE is a place, connect now. The Wi-Fi is connect now. Yeah, the place you walk in Shabbat, just leave the phones, give yourself a break. It's like mentally advisable. The big guys in the high-tech world know about the importance of having a Sabbath they've all come to respect the Jewish Sabbath for their own mental well-being. It's not something which is just a Jewish thing anymore. It's like become a global need. And really, jump into the opportunities to be able to be hosted by rabbis like this and inspiring people, because that's what changed my life. I tell you, if you would ask me what the most important thing about my Jewish journey back from being a more secular Jew to the JLE and also the most important part was the Shabbos meals and the experiences of family and talking, real conversations. Hopefully, if in England it's going to be more China than plastic, so you're going to take care of that problem also. There's a tremendous opportunity, and I think that you should just realize that this Tishrei is a Shabbos-stika year. It begins Rosh Hashanah on Shabbat. Sukkot is going to be the first day Shabbat. Shabbos. So realize there's a special Shabbos energy this year. The Shabbos is going to do what the shofar usually does this year. The Shabbos is going to do what usually the Lulav and Esrog does this year. The Shabbos is going to do what these big mitzvahs is going to have the power to bring those blessings, because it has tremendous, it's a treasure, and he's giving it to us every week. It's the best gift. And to really take advantage of it. It's also an amazing time to learn. We're going to learn here hopefully together Friday night, and I'm sure that other Rabbonim are going to have some programs going on. Take advantage of it. Don't just use it for sleeping. Use it for spiritual elevation, and especially when this Shabbos is Motzi Shabbat, is Shabbos Slichas, so then you get to take it into the new year and to realize it's a big the Rosh Hashanah to come is in this Shabbos. So really step up a little bit in your Jewishness and your connection, and everyone should be blessed with that. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. I appreciate. I bought this. I got bought this by my wife.
Good to put that to use at some point.
Rabbi, do you know Rabbi Lemberger in a frat?
Rabbi who?
Lemberger. Aaron Lemberger.
Sounds really familiar. Is your family?
No, he used to be rabbi in Scotland. He's just
Oh, you're from Scotland?
Yeah.
Wow. They do have guest speakers all the time at Shirin David at my shul. So I think he's come there one time. Does he have a strong side?
No, he's only actually for like 5-6 years. He's moved back to, his father's in a frat still. He's a young guy, he's 40.
They do let those kind of guys speak. That's why they let me speak there. Thank you.
Questions. We're following you.
Yeah, so they ordered.
I stopped working. I haven't fallen out. Just needed to focus on building my own business. I have so much going on anyway. And I can still get him a gig. I can still book for him an event.
You and America.
They send a reunion.
I'm not running that. Basically, the bottom line is the family wanted it all.
Yeah, it'll be great.
So his son's running that. So they watched what people who had training and experience. They figured out. They think they can do it. This is the first year.
Should work out.
Yes. Rabbi Audrey, thank you. Aubrey.
I've got the other way around. If somebody's got a website, Aubrey Heard.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, pleasure. I'm listening to your podcast episodes. I'm not exactly everywhere, but the history ones. Really? Amazing. SoundCloud as well. Loads of stuff there. The more Jewish content, it keeps my mind away from. I mean, I still think some of those podcasts, the general world, are very important. But to have a solid list of important, informative, and quality podcasts is very needed nowadays, more than ever. It's hard to always get to the classes, to get to
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. A trip down memory lane, Rabbi.
For sure, yeah. He's a Beit Shemesh, I think.
I remember him. I remember Rabbi. He was in Arizona Bira for a while.
Yeah. I wasn't as a student from Ireland, but he wasn't there when I was there. You do this every Thursday night?
different programs, but yeah.
Great. Okay, and it's a nice. Anyone comes here Friday night? You guys are here. It's a nice service. I think I'm sticking after the.
We daven next door in the sort of more modern.
Oh, it's nice. Yeah. Where is it?
The next door, the next room.
Across the hall.
It's the way out.
I don't know. They changed it around a little bit.
They built a new room, basically.
Watch the step.
I live in Edgware now.
Oh, really? You want to live?
Huh?
Go on.
Nah, what live? We were going back to Edgware now?
Yeah, I'll go live. I never saw them. When did they do this?
Yes!
This
This is all new.
Very good guy.
This is all that.
Yeah.
When did this? Oh, this is where Nissan spoke. I wonder where this was.
This is where Nissan spoke.
Yeah. So that was the
This is
opening
where we
night.
daven as well
That
now.
was the opening night. Or
Yeah. This is where we daven now.
Because I was like, where did they
Well, this is the Arana Kodesh.
On wheels.
On wheels. And we put a kitchen down here. Down the wood.
Amazing.
Down here, yeah.
Nice.
The main base is now used by the Swardish Shul. Yeah, big stuff.
Right.
So I run campus there now. Yeah, that's mad. This is like
What about Rudy? I wanted to bring him to you guys.
Really Rockman?
Really rock.
Oh wow, yeah, he's amazing.
don't actually know who that is. The
Doesn't.
building now, building a new floor. This is the elevator shop.
That's amazing.
Building a whole new on the roof, yeah.
Okay, then I'll shout out to you guys.
I do a lot of stuff now with the parents.
Oh, wow.
Parents of kids up there.
Wow.
Let's get the
My dad should be outside. I need to actually go there.